Can't you make this bigger, this box?
Okay.
If you make a box bigger, then
Okay.
yeah. So Vikesh Pandit has a direct relationship with Brahmananda. Do you know that? In what way, Hare Krishna? Yes, he's on my Facebook. So today is the appearance day of Vikesh Pandit, and it's the disappearance day of Brahmananda. So what is the relationship between Brahmananda and Vikesh Pandit? Who knows? So Prabhupada will tell us right now. So Prabhupada says in the Gaur Gandesha Dipaka, it is stated that Vikesh Pandit was an incarnation of Aniruddha, one of the quadruple expansions of Vishnu, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. He could dance wonderfully for 72 continuous hours. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu played in dramatic performances in the house of Srivas Pandit, Vikesh Pandit was one of the chief dancers. There you go. And I'm going to play you a video where Prabhupada says that Brahmananda was the first to dance. And he used to dance for 3 hours at Tompkins Square Park while Prabhupada was playing kirtan, beating the drum. So, and he danced continuously for that length of time. Sri Govindadas, an Oriya devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has described the life of Vikesh Pandit in his book, Gaura Krishnodaya. There are many disciples of Vikesh Pandit in Orissa. They are known as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, although they are Aryas. Don't tell that to an Arya. They're very nationalistic. Yeah, I'm going to show. So this is from the Adi Leela. It's in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. This quote on Vikesh. And Brahmananda was the first to dance. And I'm going to play you where Prabhupada says that. This is in Brooklyn. Here's the volume. Volume. There. Oh,
Follow. I will.
That was the first dance of our Krishna consciousness. That was a, what is that? The shop. So I was chanting Hare Krishna from 2 to 5, 3 hours. And so many points were coming, joining. There was one photograph, nine, we all nine, together. And people asked them, so this chant, beginning was all done. There was no nothing wrong. At that time, there was no program of prasad. There Brahmananda Thakur said, Golokira Prema Dhana Hari Nama Sam. It is important on spiritual.
Oh, it went off.
That is, so I was chanting. That is chant. Beginning was on prasad. And later on, then. So, we will all understand that some vibration of this material world, this is not right. Brahmananda Thakur said, Golokira Prema Dhana Hari Nama Sam. It is important on spiritual level.
So Brahmananda Prabhu, he was born in 1943 in New York, and who would know 23 years later he would become the first president of ISKCON. ISKCON was incorporated July 13th, 1966, and Brahmananda was born on July 14th, just one day ahead. So in the beginning, there were no officers of the society when Prabhupada incorporated. There were trustees just to get the ISKCON incorporated, but there was no officers. That didn't come until October, November. Me and Brahmananda were the first ones to move into the storefront at 26 Second Avenue. And we wanted to be as close to Prabhupada as possible. Prabhupada had his apartment in the next building. You had to walk through a little walkway and then a little garden, and then Prabhupada's apartment was on the first floor. It was a studio apartment. It wasn't very big. It was a small apartment. In those days, it was only $75, $3,000 if you wanted to rent a place there. So it's increased. Next door to the temple now is a big skyscraper glass building. It looks kind of funny because that building where Prabhupada lives is over 100 years old. It had wooden floors, not cement floors. So when you danced in the storefront, the wooden boards would move. We were scared we'd fall into the cellar if they broke, especially when Brahmananda would dance. You know. So he was first appointed as president. This was in October, November. Now, why? Actually, he called us in for a room. There was only a few of us because most of the other people had jobs, but it was on a weekend. So he called, there was Sat Swarup was there, Kirtanananda was there, Ray Rama was there, I was there, Brahmananda was there. This is 1966, November. And then, so Prabhupada asked us, so who should be president? So Brahmananda spoke up. I think it should be Kirtanananda because he was the first to join in July. Brahmananda joined in August. I joined in September. Yeah. So Prabhupada thought about it. Then he said, no, I think Brahmananda should be the president. Because Brahmananda, he had a job at the New York City public school system. So although we lived in the storefront, we kept our belongings underneath the Vyasasana where they were safe. And we had to get up at 6 o'clock because the class was at 7 o'clock every morning. And so Brahmananda had to go to work. So he was giving his full paycheck, which was $400 a month. Because before that, when Prabhupada got the storefront and apartment, nobody paid the rent. Prabhupada had $200 saved from selling his books that he brought from India. The Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, 3 volumes. The first one was printed in 1962. The second one was printed in 64. And the third one was printed in 65. It was just after that he was told by Rupa Goswami to now go to America. There's a painting of that we had made. It's based on a conversation with Hari Sari. Prabhupada called it an open secret. Everybody knew that Rupa Goswami appeared to Prabhupada and tell him, now you go and preach in the West of America. So Prabhupada had every intention of going to America first. Generally, Swamis used to go to London first. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Generally, the Swamis would go, or yogis would go to London, because that's where all the Indians were. There were very few Indians in the 60s in America. There was mostly Pakistanis, because during the Cold War, India was an ally of Russia or the Soviet Union, and Pakistan was an ally of America. So Prabhupada thought that let me choose Brahmananda as the first president. Then for secretary, he chose Satsvarup, because Satsvarup was a good editor and writer. He was already editing Prabhupada's Bhagavad-Gita, retyping it. And so who would be the treasurer and accountant? There was only one person left who didn't have a job. That was me. I was 18 years old. I'm celebrating my 60th anniversary this year, along with ISKCON. Haribol, Haribol, glory to Prabhupada. So it's 60 years that I've been with Prabhupada now. And of the officers left, Satsarup is left. He's, I think, 82 or 83 years old. He's living in upstate New York, still writing books, Prabhupada. So I didn't know anything about accounting. I didn't even have a bank. I was an 18-year-old kid. I didn't have anything. So Prabhupada taught me accounting. And he told me to buy a ledger book and a cash book. And he taught me the Indian system of accounting in his room while he was translating on the typewriter. He used to use a typewriter, a small portable typewriter, because his desk was one of the old Indian steamer trunks, those thin steamer trunks. Dinabandhu knows them, I think. You can get them in Mathura. They have many shops there where they make those steel trunks. And that was Prabhupada's desk, because he sat on the floor. There was no furniture, although we kept a chair in his closet for guests who couldn't sit on the floor, like my mother. She was the first mother to meet Prabhupada for Brahmananda's initiation, which was on Radhastami in 1966 in September. And so Brahmananda assumed his role as president, although he had a job. And He would donate all the $400 he got, and that was good because Prabhupada got the place from Mukunda. He found the place, but he didn't give any money. So Prabhupada had about $200 saved up from selling his books to bookstores. That he brought 200 sets of Bhagavatam with him on the ship that took 37 days. And so he used that money to pay for the first month's rent. After that, that was in July, he didn't have any money left. So by people donating 10, $20, he was able to make the next month's rent. But it was very difficult because you had to pay for food, for gas in the kitchen. It was very difficult then. So Brahmananda had enough money to pay for all of that. It was $400. The apartment was 75. The storefront was 125. So that's $200. And another 200 was to pay for the other expense, electricity and that kind. So Brahmananda, Prabhupada said he got relief when Brahmananda joined because he was the other devotees couldn't donate like that because they had their own apartments. And Brahmananda was only able to eat breakfast. He couldn't eat lunch because he had to work. So he had to fast all day and then come to the temple in the evening, 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and we would say prasadam for him. And then class would start. And he would assume his leadership role by after Prabhupada gave the lecture and kirtan in the evening class, he would get up and make an announcement each day, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This is in the temple room. You can only fit about 20 people. That's Jodharani dancing. That's Hari Griva. He edited the Bhagavad-Gita. That's me dancing. I'm playing the tom-tom drum because Prabhupada got a pair of kartals from Narayan Maharaj who sent in the mail. That was Damodar. Prabhupada led kirtan with the kartals. That was his Vyasasana. We lived in that room. And in that room, I printed back to Godhead. We had two machines. So Prabhupada every night would give that lecture after the kirtan. And we go on kirtan. This was like 9 o'clock at night. And sometimes people would throw flower pots from their apartment. Oh, I did it again. It's not here. I have to reduce it instead of click on it. Okay. Make it a little bigger. Okay. So it's now 11 years since Brahmananda left his body, and it was announced in Mayapur TV on June 7th, 2015. No, how do I turn it off? Okay. So gradually, Brahmananda fulfilled more responsibilities with his presidency. It was very difficult in the beginning because he was working. So the first thing he did was become trained up in the devotional practices. Actually, when we were initiated in those days, we only knew the four principles. We didn't know any other rules and regulations like the offenses. We were never told this. So in November of 66, Prabhupada put on the door a paper listing the 10 offenses, chanting on the door, the back of the temple door. And we could read them. We said, we didn't know this. And then there was the rules and regulations. You shouldn't only eat prasadam, the rules and regulations. We didn't know that. And then the third one was the qualities of a devotee, the 26 qualifications. We said, we didn't have any of these qualifications. And so all these rules and regulations came after we were initiated. So Prabhupada was very lenient in the beginning because he knew all of the bad things that we were doing. So we had to purify ourselves. So it took some time. But Brahmananda, he was very serious about his devotional service. And he would go up to Prabhupada's room and he would help Prabhupada carry his Bhagavad-Gita with him. We didn't have Bhagavad-Gita then. We were using Dr. Radhakrishna's Bhagavad-Gita. He told us that the verses were 95% correct. But he said, don't read the purports. Don't read, because they're Mayavadi, because in that purports, he would interpret, when Krishna says to surrender unto him, he would say, surrender to the unborn within Krishna. So Krishna is eternal, whether he's inside or outside. But Dr. Radhakrishnan didn't know that. Prabhupada had the opportunity to meet him in 1976 in Madras. But when he met him, he couldn't speak. He had some kind of paralysis. And Prabhupada told us later that that's because he's a Mayavadi and he tried to kill Krishna in his book, that there is no Krishna, that you're Krishna. And that's why Krishna took away his speaking power. So one of the other attributes of Brahmananda is he was the first devotee to preach in Brazil in 1969. And I'll play the video. It was made here in Vrindavan. So, by Prabhupada and Krishna's grace, I was the first one to introduce Krishna consciousness to Brazil. In 1969, here in New York, we would go out on a Saturday morning, and one man came up to me, and he was from Argentina, and he wanted us to come to Argentina to do a TV show of kirtan and Krishna consciousness. And he gave us tickets, and the plane would stop first in Rio. And we got down from the plane, or two of the devotees, Murari, Lila Sukha, and we got down, we went inside the airport, and we sat down in the middle of the airport, and we had the Ganga cartel, and we had Kirtan, and then we made a prayer that Krishna consciousness should be established in Brazil, in Rio. That was 1968.
कहाँ भी चिपकाना है चिपका देना सीरीज को it doesn't
Actually, you can go anywhere
and spread Krishna consciousness. This has been my experience. I even once when I was in Africa, I had to go to a very obscure place because of visa problem and so on. So I had to go. It was in the Sahara Desert. It was in Niger, which is actually a French-speaking country. And I went to this town. I don't even remember the name. I don't remember the name. Very tiny place. And I was staying there. I was in a hotel. And then I saw a lady wearing a sari. She was an Indian lady wearing a sari. Right? This is in the Sahara Desert. And I talked with her. And she married an African. And he was a doctor. He was going to medical school in India. And I met him, and all he wanted was Bhagavad-Gita. He called it Gita, Gita. And his language was French. And I had a Bhagavad-Gita in French to give him. And he was so thankful. He said, "This is what I've been wanting." From his life, he learned about Krishna. And he wanted me to stay. He was the personal physician to the this is a Muslim country. And he was Muslim too. But he was going to introduce me to the Sultan of that area. And the Sultan was the most powerful man there. And, I could have maybe opened a second, but of course I would open there forever. But my point is that you can go to any damn place on this earth, and you can spread Krishna consciousness. This is because Prabhupada did it. Everywhere Prabhupada went, he spread Krishna consciousness. So it's an authorized movement by the previous acharyas for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you can go anywhere. Just chant Hare Krishna and read Bhagavad-Gita. You'll distribute prasad. Very simple. Very simple. And this day and age, we're so fallen that we need a very simple program. This is Lord Chaitanya's gift.
So we did go to many places. Prabhupada sent us to Pakistan to preach. The first devotees preach in a Muslim country. He sent Brahmananda to Karachi, and he sent me to Dhaka, where there was a civil war going on. And then there was a war with India in 1971. But we didn't know that. So I landed in Dhaka, and we stayed for 3 months, but then they started to bomb the city and kill people. So we had to leave, and they were killing Hindus. Because in East Pakistan or Bangladesh, most of the intelligentsia, like the bureaucrats, the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, were all Hindus. The Muslims were just farmers. They were uneducated. And so this one mullah, he started a movement to annihilate all the Hindus. and they would put red paint on the doors at night, and then late at night, a bunch of people would go in and shoot the whole family. Many of my friends were shot dead. I even had a book translated into Bengali there in 1971, but I didn't have a chance to distribute it because we had to leave. And so Brahmananda, he was in West Pakistan. I centered my preaching on universities. He centered his preaching with the Indian community. But I preached in Dhaka University, and then we did some other programs. But finally, we had to leave. But there was only one flight out of Dhaka in those days on Pakistani Airlines, and you could only go to Karachi. And you couldn't fly over India. You had to fly around India, which took 22 hours because you had to refuel. For a flight that would take 3 hours, you had to take 22 hours. And it was the first time I flew in an airplane where there were goats and chickens flying around because people brought their goats and their chickens in the aisles. So anyway, we were the first ones to preach in a Muslim country, both me and Brahmananda. So one of the first services that Brahmananda had was to get Prabhupada's books published. Okay. So first, Prabhupada had Mr. Coleman, who made the record, the first Hare Krishna record, Krishna Consciousness. That's this one. This is the first record that was made with Prabhupada, the Hare Krishna. They have a copy downstairs in the museum. We got that. They didn't have that. So the man who made it is still alive. He was 90 years old, and he sent us one, and we gave it to the museum. So he had Mr. Coleman try to get his Bhagavad-Gita published, because Mr. Coleman knew many publishers. So he tried, he sent, some samples of the manuscript, but nobody was interested. No publisher was interested. And then Prabhupada gave the assignment to Ray Rama, who was a comic book writer for comic books. He did all the text in the comic books for Superman and all those comic books. So he tried. He sent, letters, but no one was interested. So one day we got a letter in the mail from a man who wanted the record because he heard about the record and he sent $3. The record was only $3 in those days, plus 50 cents shipping. So it's $3.50. So the mail, and the man was an accountant at Macmillan. He wasn't engaged in publishing. He was just a low-level accountant, but he wanted the record. So Brahmananda spoke to Prabhupada about this. So Prabhupada thought, you don't send the record you simply go there and deliver the record. So Brahmananda thought, well, he's just a low-level accountant. He's not engaged in publishing. He said, no, you go there and deliver the record. And so Brahmananda said, so should I bring another book with me that you published from India to show him and some pictures of yourself? And Prabhupada said, no, you just go there and deliver the record and you will see. So that's what we're supposed to do, to follow the order, not add or subtract. Brahmananda was adding, should I bring this and bring that? Prabhupada said, no, just bring the record and you will see. Because something was going on between Prabhupada and Krishna that we didn't know about. So Brahmananda went to the office. He was sitting in a little cubicle, the accountant. And Brahmananda was one of the first devotees to shave his head. There was only one other person, that was Kirtananda. So Brahmananda were the only ones with shaved head. So, and yet he was working in a school. And they actually asked him, the school people, the head of the school asked him, why is your head shaved? He said, oh, I have a sickness on my head and I have to shave the head. He didn't talk about anything religious because this was a Catholic school, very strict. So they let that go. So Brahmananda was kind of big size in those days. And he was sitting in the little cubicle with the accountant, showing him the record, doing a little preaching. And all of a sudden, a very well-dressed man walks into the room with all the cubicles, and his eyes caught Brahmananda with the shaved head, sitting in the office with an accountant. And so the man, why is he there? Why is this man there? He thought there was something going on or something. So he goes into the accountant's office. He introduces himself as being in charge of the Oriental catalog for Macmillan. And so Brahmananda said, oh, Oriental, that means India. So Brahmananda said, I have a manuscript of Bhagavad-Gita I want to get published. And the man said, you have what? A manuscript of Bhagavad-Gita. And the man said, that's just what we need. You come immediately. You bring it immediately. I'll publish it. So this was arranged by Krishna. Prabhupada knew it. Just go and bring it and you will see. And everything was arranged. I mean, these are little miracles that were going on. Whatever Prabhupada desired to spread Krishna consciousness, Krishna was sent to Prabhupada. He would send people to do things like edit his books. Harigriva was a professor, so he was good at editing. Also, Brahmananda took his major in English literature. So he was familiar with books and printing and this and that. And when we got ISKCON Press, he sent a man who was a printer, Advaita, who did the printing on the printing press of the small books in Boston. So whatever Prabhupada wanted, Krishna would send to Prabhupada, not for sense gratification, but for preaching work. You see, to pray to Krishna, we don't pray to Krishna for our sense gratification. We pray to Krishna to help us spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. That prayer is good for service, not for our senses. So It was the record that got the Bhagavad-Gita printed. See how things go hand in hand. And the first book that was printed was Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. I mean, what really started the publishing on the road was me getting the dictaphone for Prabhupada. Because I would sit in Prabhupada's room because he was teaching me accounting, and I had to show him my work each time, you know, what I'm doing with the cash book or with the ledger. And I used to watch him type with these two fingers. And that's how we were going to get a book, maybe after 300 years, because Prabhupada was not a fast typist. So we would have to wait a long time. So that's why I thought, what can I do to make his work easier? I'm not a fast typist, so I can't do anything. So I used to sell the Back to Godheads to these hippie shops in New York. You know, they were record shops, book shops, and I would sell the magazine there. And I noticed on my walking, because I would walk, I saw this shop called Grundig, German shop. And in the window, I saw a little tape recorder. But they didn't have little tape recorders in those days. They had these big tape. They were like suitcases. You opened it up like a suitcase, and you stood the tape recorder. It weighed like 20 pounds, 10 kilos. It was very heavy. So I said, what's that little thing in the window? So I went in and I asked the man, what is that? He said, that's a dictaphone. I said, who uses it? He said, doctors and lawyers to record their patients or their customers. I said, can an author use it? He said, oh, yeah. All you have to do is speak your book in the mic, and then you have it typed using a foot pedal to control it. You, by using your foot, you could go forward, backward, stop, go, do everything and type. And you have to have a fast typist though. So I said, well, I'm going to buy this for Prabhupada because I want to make his work easier. Because otherwise we'll never get a book. It'll take 300 years before. I mean, the Bhagavad Gita was 800 pages in those days. 800 pages it would be. So I brought the dictaphone for Prabhupada and thinking I had spent at least 40 minutes to an hour learning how to use it. You know, you had in the microphone, you had the control for going forward, backward, stop, going backward and forward, stop and go. And so I had to teach Prabhupada. I mean, Prabhupada came from a village in Vrindavan. How would he know how to do a dictaphone? So I had to spend some time learning how to teach Prabhupada. I said, that's going to be a hard part to do. So I brought the dictaphone to Prabhupada, and sure enough, he said, I have to show you how to use it. He said, that's okay, I know. Because Prabhupada brought a tape recorder, so he knew these things, how to go forward and backward already. That's the first thing he bought when he came to America was a tape recorder. Because he would record his own lectures, his songs, you know. He did the Bhagavad-Gita, a lot of the lectures for that. He did the introduction to Bhagavad, 3-hour tape he did on the tape recorder. Yeah. Tape record kirtan, he called it. Because he would record his kirtans if he played them. So in this way, that's how the publishing started. So it's not opening. Oh, close it. So the first book to be printed was TLC. And Brahmananda wrote the prayer of offering the book to Prabhupada, which was printed in the book. Years later, the BBD took those out, the book. But there was such an uproar from the devotees, they put it back in again. So he offers his obeisance, and then he says, we offer our respectful obeisances to Bhakti-Vedanta, who is so dear unto Krishna on this earth, due to his taking shelter unto the Lord's lotus feet. We prostrate ourselves at the lotus feet of our beloved spiritual master and offered this treasure book to his divine grace on our bowed heads. We came to him looking for broken pieces of glass, and he has bestowed upon us a priceless gem. He has opened our eyes, which is blinded by the darkness of atheism and mental speculation and sense gratification, to the glorious light of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His transcendental words are seeds which in our hearts have bloomed in the perfection of human life, the discovery that God lives and that we can live with him in Krishna consciousness. The publisher, that was Brahmananda. He got the book published. And in Japan, through another devotee called Dwarkadish. He's no longer with us, Dwarkadish. They were the largest printer in the world. They printed all the big magazines, Life magazine, Time magazine. They printed all these magazines. Finally, we got our Back to Godhead printed there also. They had huge printing machines, and they did the TLC. And they were also very inexpensive. They were less priced than if you printed in America. Yeah, I'm going to show them. I want to show what his first services. So he was in charge of ISKCON Press in Boston. He printed Sri Upanishad. Then he was in charge of getting the Krishna book published. And Prabhupada wanted it. This is the original copy, not the ones you can see. We only put A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami because that was on the Bhagavatam. We didn't have his divine grace. Those books came later. This is the first printing. I gave it to the temple. I think it's in the museum. So this is the first one that was printed. And Prabhupada wanted it for the 1970 Rath Yatra. He wanted to sell them at the Rath Yatra. So a month before, Brahmananda had to go to Japan and sit there and see that this book was able to be ready for Rath Yatra, which only gave them 3 months. But Prabhupada was insistent that it be ready for 1970 Rath Yatra. So Brahmananda went a month before to get them to have it ready. Finally, the day that he had to leave, the book wasn't ready. And he was sitting on the plane having to tell Prabhupada the book isn't ready. And Prabhupada wanted it for Rath Yatra. Then all of a sudden, He heard sirens outside and limousines coming. There were limousines. What's this? Who's coming? These were the directors of Dying Upon, the biggest printing house in the world, coming to bring one box of 20 copies or 30 copies of Krishna book, the first volume, so that Brahmananda could take it back to Prabhupada. See how these little miracles? I mean, who knows that these things could happen? But Prabhupada wanted it, and Krishna said, okay, I will intervene. And it came. And even they sold all the copies, even Prabhupada's copy they sold at Rath Yatra 1970. Yeah, he sold one on the plane. Prabhupada was very happy. Then he got the Nectar of Devotion. This was printed at ISKCON Press, 1969, 70 also. So the books were coming out. And as long as we were printing, Prabhupada would do translating. And I mean, it's unbelievable how much translating with Prabhupada doing today. And Prabhupada's over 70, you know. In 1970, he's 75 years old at that time. And he's translating so much. And as long as we were printing, he'd keep translating. He was like Veda Vyas. I mean, some people called him an incarnation of Veda Vyas for now because of all the books. This was Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Ramananda chose the front cover, and Prabhupada said, you have made the right choice. I don't know. Then Prabhupada, so many devotees were coming to the temple and moving in. They didn't know anything. We had to have a handbook for all the devotees who were living in the temple, who had to know the prayers, the rules and regulations, everything. They had to know all these things. They had to know all these things. So Brahmananda printed the first handbook of Krishna consciousness in 1970. That was printed also in Boston. So these are the first services that Brahmananda did for Prabhupada. He got the record. Then there was the Bhagavad-Gita. Uh-oh. This was the condensed version. It was a pocket book. It only sold for $3 in those days. And it was in their Oriental catalog for Macmillan. And this book was printed 15 times. And each time they printed it, they printed 50,000 copies. So over the years, there was printed hundreds and thousands of copies. And the last printing that I know of, because it's in Prabhupada's room, there's a conversation in 1977 for Mayapur Festival. It was stated they were printing 2 million copies of this book, 2 million. And guess how many train cars of paper was required? Because you had to bring the paper to the printer. The printer didn't have the paper. So you had to bring the paper. And they went by train cars, cargo. Guess how many train cars of paper required to print 2 million copies? 75. Yeah, print 2 million copies. How do I make this big size? Big size. Oh, okay. So Brahmananda was given, I mean, he did so much service. It, it, it would take me days to complete. But one of the two services that he did that were very important is he was given the service of saving Prabhupada's life. The first one was in 1967 when Prabhupada had a stroke. And Brahmananda narrates this.
His stroke, Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend, everyone leaves New York City, like this huge exodus. And I could see Prabhupada couldn't function, he was seamless. So I called my family doctor, but he was out of town, and we just get the answer service. And I asked other girls, anyone know any doctor, and nobody knew. And I was calling, I just took the phone book, I started making random calls. Whomever I called, everyone was out of town for the week. Everybody knows. At least the birthdays, I don't know. And I'm just calling, and it's hard enough to get anyone to come to a residence anyway. And I actually could not get any doctor. And, it was either bringing Prabhupada to a hospital, I didn't want to do that. And ultimately, I just got some kind of doctor referral service, municipal thing. And eventually, I was able to get to them some doctor. And finally, the doctor came.
Every morning, Prabhupada would come downstairs and give class. So we were all waiting for the class, and Prabhupada didn't come down. So we went upstairs to see what was wrong. Why didn't Prabhupada come down for the class in 7 o'clock in the morning? Prabhupada was always on time. He was always punctual for his meetings, class. He always kept a watch, and he was always on time. So we all went, and I saw with my own eyes Prabhupada laying in front of his sitting place, and he was completely incapacitated. He said he was blind in the left eye, and he had paralysis in his left side. That's a stroke. And usually you don't recover from a stroke, or you have some disability like Jaipataka. You've seen Jaipataka. Everybody gets paralysis from strokes. And here's Prabhupada sitting, laying down. So that's why we were so concerned. And we were just young boys. We didn't know what to do. And it was vacation, Memorial Day. Everybody goes, doctors, lawyers, leave the city to go into the country.
And he was this little old, I guess, the Jewish guy. And he comes in. Of course, we didn't ask him to take his shoes off. But there we're all standing in our kind of used to wearing jeans and t-shirts, barefoot. Walks in, there's no furniture.
there's a carpet, and there's this old Indian man. Hey, you couldn't tell what's going on here. And it was probably very stupid. Everyone was like, I started this, that. I mean, they just couldn't understand. It took them time just to understand what's going on here. They're looking people examining the problem. And he was a very kind of boisterous type of person, and he examines Prabhupada, and then, the stethoscope, this, that. And then afterwards, he goes outside, and so well, what's wrong? So, well, I think the old man is plays too much. Well, oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, he was just praying, just sitting there praying all day, and he's got to get out, he's got to do some exercise. And Prabhupada can hear him from the other room. Yep, he's got to do something. Exercise, go for a walk, do something. Go out in the morning, take a walk, go to the park. Oh, anyway, and then he just left. Now he did this guy, that's all he could say. So eventually we did have to actually, I did put Prabhupada in the hospital, and that's the whole thing. And then Prabhupada came out of the hospital, and to a house in New Jersey, we rented from the sister. Anyway, then Prabhupada did recover sufficiently. And then Prabhupada announced that now I would take a morning walk. He said, that doctor, he said something very good, very valuable. We all laughed because we talked about his gut. And he said, no, he was giving very good instruction. I won't take that out. And Prabhupada then proceeded to take the morning walk. And Prabhupada always took that morning walk. I mean, no matter what his condition, what his health was, whatever. I mean, I know stories of Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was in Switzerland, and it was snowing out. He was in a hotel, Champagne, to say what it is, the whole story. But Prabhupada couldn't go outside for his morning walk, so he took his morning walk in the corridors of the hotel. Walking, just as if he was outside, he was just walking. I mean, I know when there was an automobile accident he had in Mauritius, and we all had been injured, even Prabhupada. Next morning, Prabhupada rang us down. We were aching and paining, and Prabhupada, he was injured even more. And his legs and so on. Did he write it down? We were going morning walk. And if we were like hobbling, and but Prabhupada went on his morning walk, Prabhupada was also feeling, he was much older than we were. Because we feel, when there's a big tension like that, you feel the next day, all that adrenaline, it gives you a lot of pain. So Prabhupada went on his morning walk. So Prabhupada followed that instruction.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. That's the next video. The Brahmananda took the leadership, but nobody knew what to do. Everybody just was shocked. was shocked to see Prabhupada in that condition. Everybody just froze and they didn't know what to do. But Brahmananda took the leadership of what to do. And he kept calling and calling because there were no doctors available. And we put him in the hospital just to stabilize him, just to stabilize his condition. And how he got out, that's another story. But I want to go to the next Leela where Ramananda saves Prabhupada's life. And this is in a head-on car accident where people were very hurt, including Prabhupada. Sign up. Why there's no song?
There's no in this one.
No, there's song. But play the one song.
It's showing this disappearance.
VLC on there? Because VLC works. Yeah, VLC.
Well, so there were some days where there was really no programs scheduled. So Prabhupada thought to we'll go for a ride. We had the big limousine there. So Prabhupada thought to
So Prabhupada went to Mauritius in 1975. He was invited by the prime minister at that time. So the prime minister gave his limousine with a chauffeur. Prabhupada was supposed to meet with the prime minister, but he had a very important political meeting. So he sent a car so Prabhupada could go on a tour of the island of Mauritius. So Prabhupada said, yeah, let's go for a drive. Get a change of atmosphere. Prabhupada was in the house. So that's when this very dangerous situation happened.
we'll go for a ride. We had this big limousine there, and also he had nothing to do with Prabhupada wasn't doing it. But let's go for a ride. And so we arranged it all. And Mauritius is a very scenic, very beautiful place. It's kind of pristine island. So Prabhupada is riding in the back seat. I'm sitting next to him. Krishna Krishna is in the front seat. The driver driving, and we're moving along. It was very pleasant. See beautiful, beautiful ocean, sky, and everything was very nice. Sugar cane growing. We were driving along the coastline, and beside him, Prabhupada had his cane. And Prabhupada was enjoying it very much. Had the window down and the fresh air. And he was sitting cross-legged on the seat. backseat. And Prabhupada was enjoying it. And then at a certain point, I didn't realize, I mean, I didn't notice it then, but later on. But at a certain point, Prabhupada just took the cane and put it like on the floor and was holding it like this with his two hands. I mean, just after taking the cane, we just made it turn on the corner, around the bend, and immediately, I mean, there was not a second to react. It happened so fast, head-on collision. What it was, when we found out, a tourist from South Africa was driving on the wrong side of the road, and that was it. So we just hit. I mean, and it was head-on collision, and everyone was in shock. The driver, he's full of blood. I mean, he just, I don't know what was the name of the Krishna, you know, the glass shattered, he's born in blood. I also, my arm gashed, Prabhupada had blood on his dhoti, his knee, and we're also, I mean, my first reaction, which was a little bit maybe inappropriate, I just put my arms around Prabhupada and just held it. It was just so shocking. And Prabhupada didn't say anything. And then Krishna was out of it. I was the only one who could function on it. Somehow I just got out of that car. The other car was a Volkswagen. It was a man and a woman. And the woman, she was like unconscious. And the man, he was getting out of his car. And anyway, I realized I got to get Prabhupada out of here. I didn't know where we were. And I didn't know where our house was. I didn't know anything. And anyway, then after our car comes by. And Mauritius, of course, it's an Indian place, and there are very few Western or white people. So anyway, this other car, the car that we had, there were white people. The car that also came, there were white people there. So anyway, I tried to stop the car. The car just went right by. It didn't want to. Several guys didn't want. Anyway, then another car came by. So this time, I stood in the middle of the road. The car stopped. So the car stopped, and I went up to the people in the car, and I said, we need help. My grandfather, I don't know. I said, my grandfather is injured, an old man. Please take us to the nearest hospital. So they said, okay. But they also saw the other car with the women. The woman they saw Prabhupada, they saw he was an Indian. They see this woman, she's unconscious, she's full of blood. Prabhupada just had a little bit of blood, but she was really bad. Volkswagen head-on collision. So and then the other man wanted for his wife, he wanted a pension for his wife. So we were competing, and so they said, well, maybe we could take her first, and they didn't have much room. And I said, no, you take us. No, we want to go. And I slapped the car. I said, you're taking us? You're taking us right now? And let's go. So they said, okay. And so I took Prabhupada out of the car, and we went and Prabhupada was absolutely silent, never pushed a word. I put him in the car, get in the car, and then these people start driving. And anyway, we're getting in the car, and the only reason they were taking it is because I forced them. And we get in the car, and they said, well, we don't know where the hospital is, and this and that. And anyway, we're going over here and to our hotel, and you can go to the hotel. And I said, no, we want to go to a hospital right now. And so Papa didn't say anything, so I knew whatever I was doing, Papa was agreeing to, because he didn't say anything. So, but then I could see these people weren't helping us, and they didn't even want to take us. They didn't want to find the hospital. They just wanted to go to. So I realized being with these people, this is not good. I just said, all right, stop the car. They're not going to help us. Stop the car. And they started the car, and I took Brown. We got out of the car. Then they left, and there we are, standing in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know where to go again. I'm lost. And then another car comes along. And I stopped that car. But in this car, three Indian guys in it. And we saw Prabhupada. They were, offering respect and Swamiji. And I said, take us to the nearest hospital. And he got in the car. We got to the nearest hospital. Then Prabhupada said, no, take us home. No hospital. So I didn't even know where our home was, and we had to. Eventually, they could understand where it was and so on. And so anyway, we were very happy. They took us immediately home. Go around the island, the other side of the island. And it was quite a drive. So we went home, and car pulled in. Hardly 4 hours was there. He didn't come with us. He was doing the transcription. He still back. I mean, he didn't know what because we left in a limousine and we came back in this junky old 3 Indian boys, junky old car. Well, and then Papa gets out of the car and there's blood on his door. I mean, she's shocked, and Papa's not speaking anything. Just goes into the house, sits down in his place. And so we had to dress. There was a wound. We had to dress the wound, clean it, and then so then Prabhupada was saying that now he wants to go back to Bombay. Prabhupada never wanted to leave Bombay anyway, even for any other, because Prabhupada was very much concerned with the Bombay project, getting the land, they're fighting all the government, the municipality, the local politicians, the residents, the seller. I mean, it's just a constant battle, required constant supervision. Prabhupada had to do that.
So that was the Mauritius. Brahmananda took leadership. He knew exactly what to do. And he took leadership. No one else could do that. And it was a really serious incident. And Prabhupada was completely quiet, didn't say a word, Brahmananda said. So he put the faith in his disciples. Prabhupada put his faith in his disciples to handle this situation. And Brahmananda took that up. So that was the second time that Brahmananda was taking that service of saving Prabhupada's life. So he had so many accomplishments. After Prabhupada had that stroke and paralysis and blindness, we rented a house on the sea. near New York, in Long Branch, New Jersey. Hey, and here's Prabhupada 10 days after the stroke, and you can't see anything wrong with him. And that's improbable to happen, because always with a stroke, there's some kind of paralysis in the body. And Prabhupada's back to normal. This is at the 1967.
Ignorance, just opposite number of knowledge. So these are called dark.
Smiling
So
as if nothing happened.
One is in Krishna consciousness.
Brahmananda's there.
Quality is
Advaita,
not
the redhead, he was the printer at the press in Boston.
of progression.
Mahapurush,
कृष्ण सूर्य समा माया पाए का जहाँ कृष्ण तहाँ नहीं बने जहाँ कृष्ण wherever Krishna is there, Krishna is absolute. He can be present in various potential. He can be present by name of Krishna, Hare Krishna. He is present because his name is not different from his. That is the absolute sense.
we had these little juggernauts
Suppose
that Malati got
somebody
at a Cost Plus shop in San Francisco.
The response cannot be. That's right.
And everybody was wearing these. I had one. And I asked Prabhupada, when we go in the bathroom, do we take it off? And Prabhupada said, Jagannath is not around your neck, he's in your heart. So I took it off when I went. Yeah. First, I want to do bowing down to our mother. That was at the initiation.
Initiation was Prabhupada asked me that I should invite my mother to come. So I did, and she came. My father wouldn't come, but she came. And then she sat on the chair and had the fire sacrifice. And so at the end, it was when Papa gave the dance. And then, so I bowed down to him. And then Papa said, no, you bow down to your mother. So I turned and I got down and I bowed down and of course I said the mantra of the basis of the Prabhupada. My mother, quite, she felt quite uncomfortable having her son bowing down at her feet. And then Prabhupada instructed me that whenever you see your mother, you bow down to her, off her basis. And I used to do that. Sometimes I would have a visit and they went in Connecticut. Once I went there to distribute books to all family friends. So I would, ring the doorbell and, my mother would open the door and there was nobody there, but there I was. And the ground opened the door. So she didn't like it, of course, but actually it was proper instruction and we did it. And we said things to the podcast and then it was attachment. mother-son family actually was kind of dissipated by that. It made the relationship more formal. It was nice discussion. Then I was
So also at that function of the initiation, so Prabhupada said, I'm taking care of your two sons. Would you like to give a donation? And my mother got real angry. She said, I just gave you my two sons. And Prabhupada said, oh, thank you very much. He wanted to get her to agree to give the two sons. He wanted the sons, not the money, because the sons would do service. So that's how Prabhupada got my mother to agree. But she was always against it anyway. But later on, she became more friendly. The father did. Yeah. So this video is about how Brahmananda surrendered.
a couple days later, I went to see him. And I went up to his apartment, and I walked through. There was this courtyard there, and there was this one devotee, and he was typing, completely immersed in his work. And I associated that his manuscript typing, Swami books. So I went up to the apartment, knocked on the door, and the door opened, and Swami was there. Yeah. Well, I was sleeping here. Well, come in. And then we went to go to this little sitting room. I sat down behind this little metal box with floor paint. And we started talking. He asked me my name. And I told Bruce. And thought that I was talking about in India and in the labs. There was one Lord Bruce. So on. And then so then I started telling about myself. And then I just found myself saying that, well, I want to become your student full time. And actually, I did finish taking, I took a special training for teaching, and I was employed by New York City Board of Education to teach remedial reading in a special program to culturally deprived children. Is, widows. And so I said to Swami that, well, I just finished my training. Actually, my assignment was beginning the next day. And I said, well, my job actually began, I have a job in beginning of tomorrow, my assignment, but I just want to be with you. I just want to be for proper day, that's fine. But you have a job. And I said, yes. Without, what is the salary? Again, Prabhupada explained to me Bhagavad-Gita in a nutshell. He explained Krishna telling Arjuna to do his duty, to do devotional service, to work for Krishna, but not partake in the fruits of the activities. Give all the fruits of activity to Krishna. So Prabhupada explained
giving them very practical instruction, first instruction. So he said, you can be my student, and you can also do your job. And you can also give the fruits of your job to Krishna. So my first service was to work and to give my salary to Prabhupada.
So in this conversation, Brahmananda told me about the mention about his salary. Then Brahmananda asked Prabhupada, how do I give my money to Krishna? And Prabhupada said, you give it to me and I will give it to Krishna. So and he did, he gave his full paycheck because we were living in the storefront. And before that, in our family, we had a 20-room house with 6 bathrooms, a swimming pool, a lake, 10 acres of land. We lived in the jungle, like in the forest. So we gave all that up. We had a maid who did everything for us. That was hard for me because I was engaged in cleaning Prabhupada's bathroom. I never cleaned a bathroom in my whole life. How do you clean a bathroom? So I had to learn how to do that with the brush and the liquid cleaner. I didn't know how to do that. So one of the other services Prabhupada had, Brahmananda had, is when two months before he left his body, he was the MC for the 40th anniversary of Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he gave a nice lecture about how Krishna Balaram got built, because it's in the Bhagavatam. And then he relates Prabhupada to the Bible about creation, because it mentions in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, let there be a temple. And in the Bible it says, let there be sound, let there be this, let there be that. And that comes from the Bible, because Prabhupada studied the Bible in Scottish Church. So I'll play that little clip for you, because it's a very important point. How about this temple
But I want
got
a
built?
specific answer. When Prabhupada said, actually, he wrote in his purport, but I want a specific answer. What Prabhupada said, actually, he wrote in his purport, Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says, who created, first of all, creation, what does creation come from?
Lord Balaram.
Huh?
Lord Balaram.
No, what prompts creation? All right, I'll tell you the answer. Desire. First, you have to have desire, then you create the thing. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 13 is stealing the boys and calves by Brahma. What's the significance of this chapter? Stealing the boys and calves by Brahma.
This is the last class he gave before he
What's the important?
died.
This was the last
No, I mean
chapter
Brahmananda's lecture.
that Prabhupada translated of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right here in Vrindavan, in his house, on his bed. You've all seen the photos. Pradumya holding the dictaphone. So this is the final chapter. And this verse, this purport, is one of the final verses that Prabhupada composed. So we should think, the final words are most important. So in this purport, Prabhupada reveals, he talks about himself, which is very rare. Prabhupada in his purports hardly ever wrote about himself. He writes about himself, and he writes about the Krishna Balaram Mandir. So the verse number 50, is about the desire of the pure devotees. Do pure devotees have desires? And if they do, what are those desires? And where do those desires come from? Well, the verse explains that desire in the pure devotee is created by the sidelong glances of Vishnu or Krishna. So Prabhupada is writing about the word Svarkarthanam refers to great desires. As mentioned in this verse, the glance of Lord Vishnu creates the desires of the devotees. A pure devotee, however, has no desires. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami comments that because the desires of devotees whose attention is fixed on Krishna have already been fulfilled, the Lord's sidelong glances create variegated desires in relation to Krishna and devotional service. In the material world, desire is a product of Rajaguna and Tamaguna. But desire in the spiritual world gives rise to a variety of everlasting transcendental service. Thus, the word Svarkarthanam refers to eagerness to serve Krishna. In Vrindavan, there is a place where there was no temple, but a devotee desired, quote, let there be a temple, let there be seva, devotional service, unquote. Therefore, what was once an empty corner has now become a place of pilgrimage. Such are the desires of a devotee. So, we may think that we constructed this temple and deities and everything, but actually it was simply due to Prabhupada's desire. He wanted a temple in Vrindavan, and it was created. Simply even this phrase, let there be a temple. You know where that comes from? It's a biblical phrase in Genesis. Because Prabhupada, he read the Bible at Scottish churches. Let there be light, and there was light. Let there be creation, there was creation. Let there be a temple, and there was a temple. So it was, Prabhupada is, and he refers to himself as a devotee. He doesn't, in the third person, he doesn't even refer to himself in the first person. So humble. So because one devotee desired, even it was a vacant place, now it has become a place of pilgrimage. And we can see that in Prabhupada's entire history, his career, that everything happened because of Prabhupada's desire. We couldn't see that. He didn't reveal it to us. But otherwise, how did these happen? Otherwise, you have to call them miracles. I can tell you of McMillan.
But that's an important point. How Brahmananda brings in the Bible where God is speaking, and Prabhupada is speaking the same language. So this is a very advanced realization. How he connects the two together. So Brahmananda spoke.
Now, I noticed one thing. I just noticed that the sink is not there.
At the 100th anniversary
That sink was very important. It
of
used to sit
Prabhupada
right there. Prabhupada used to sit right here on
in
the
1996,
platform
from 1996.
because when Prabhupada would cut the apple after the kirtan, he would not core it or would not skin it, just slice it.
That 26-second
And he would also take one, and he would just put it in and chew, and then somehow he was able to separate the core and the skin and so on, and then he would lean back and just spit the whole thing right into the sink. And everyone would say, wow. No one did that. So that sink is not there. They should put it aside. This is the sink. Prabhupada used, like a spittoon.
we used to take bath in that sink. Because Prabhupada told us that if you clean the 9 holes of the body, it's as good as taking a bath. So that's what we did. There was a curtain there. We closed the curtain and clean the 9 holes of the body. Because we didn't want to use Prabhupada's shower for bathing. So we would bathe in the storefront, me and Brahmananda, by cleaning the 9 holes of the body.
But how he got it all the way into the sea.
Yeah. Yeah, at least 10 feet or more, less, maybe 7 to 10 feet.
Going to work, I would go every day to work to New York City, Glorification, and one day I saw there was a newspaper just lying on the subway. I wasn't even I stopped reading Wall Street. It was the New York Times, and there was a picture of Dr. Radhakrishnan. And I just started reading. It was Dr. Radhakrishnan retired. He was president of India. And I ran back to the temple with it to show to Prabhupada because Prabhupada had been telling us all about Dr. Radhakrishnan. We had so much contact with him, and we had asked him to join in this movement. And Dr. Radhakrishnan is the Pukka Mayavadi. He's the deluded scholar, who said not to Krishna, the unborn within Krishna. And Prabhupada said so many things. And Prabhupada had told us that he had invited Dr. Radhakrishnan to preach the consciousness. And Dr. Radhakrishnan told Prabhupada, when I retire, then I will do it. And here I am riding on a subway to New York, and there's a newspaper, right? Staring me in the face, Dr. Radhakrishnan retires. So I took the article and Prabhupada wrote him a letter inviting him to take up Krishna consciousness. And whatever happened, nothing came of that. But then later when Prabhupada went to India on his tour of South India, he went to see Dr. Radhakrishnan. And I know the story how he was incapacitated and so on. He had gotten a stroke and he couldn't even speak. He was paralyzed. And Prabhupada said, because he cannot speak because he is Mayavadi. This is what Krishna has. He spoke from the content and how he cannot speak. My roommate from college, I was living on 6th Street, and he came to tell me that we used to go to Ramakrishna, all these yoga places together, and he said, oh, I just went to a very calming, but very unusual. They would be singing and dancing. We were into meditation, singing and dancing. And he said, yeah, he had a big tape recorder. We refused to wear wristwatch. Because we didn't know what time it was. So that was not my time. So Alan Ginsberg was there. So he was our hero. I said, oh, I have to go. So then I came here, I walked over, and I came here and sat right back there at the door, and I remember Prabhupada coming in, the door opened, and Prabhupada came in, and as he came in, he was to get up on the platform, but instead he just stopped, and he turned, and he looked right at me. And I'll never forget that. It's like burnt into my memory that I'm not there saying hello. Okay. So anyway, Prabhupada once asked me, he said, how did you join? So I told Prabhupada the story. It's a very important question. How did you join? I mean, even Prabhupada was interested to know how we joined. He asked me once, many years later, he said, how did you join? So I told my friend, no, I guess so. I told him that my friend told me about you, and I came, but he didn't join. And Prabhupada was same with me. And then he told the story of his friend, I think Narendranath Mullik, brought him to Bhakti-yoga. He did not join Prabhupada. So that's Prabhupada doesn't tell that story. Sadhu.
that one of Brahmananda's most glorious services was to go to Africa, start the African preaching. I mean, Prabhupada wanted to go there because then Prabhupada said they'll have centers on every continent. Africa was left out. We had in Europe, Australia, Asia. We had all the continents except for Africa. And so Brahmananda had an interview. He did an interview with Padmanabha Goswami of the Radharaman temple. 3-hour interview. And he tells Padmanabha how he
And I
went to
came in
Africa.
1971, Prabhupada sent me here. There was only one devotee here. Here, Dakshai. You know, he passed away recently. Yeah. He made a temple here in Vrindavan. And one thing, when I came, I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada, glorifying Vrindavan. I thought it was the most wonderful place. And I wrote Prabhupada a letter saying how nice Vrindavan is. So Prabhupada's reply to me was not, he said that it's very nice that you're appreciating Vrindavan, but better, maybe he saw that I wanted maybe to stay in Vrindavan. He said, but better go to Africa and make a black Vrindavan.
Black Vrindavan. And he went there.
It was scary then.
Yeah. They were not so educated. So when Brahmananda went to Africa, he had a meeting with Muhammad Ali, great fighter. He was interested in Krishna consciousness. This is the photo we're going to use on the book.
Yeah.
Brahmananda was the longest serving secretary, but not at one time, at different times, different years. Because he had to leave Africa and to travel with Prabhupada, but then Africa would have problems that he'd have to go back there because he was the stalwart for Africa. So when Prabhupada went there, Brahmananda was mostly preaching to the Indian community, not to the Africans. And Prabhupada wanted to start the preaching to the Africans because he said Indians have no future in Africa unless the Africans become Krishna conscious. Because they were all thrown out from Uganda. 50,000 were thrown out because Idli Ahmed wanted to make all the each Gujarati daughter who was there marry a African. No. Otherwise, you got to leave. And they did leave, 50,000. And then Uganda just slipped back. It was a rich country before because all the business was done by the Gujarati community. And they all left and went to England. So Prabhupada wanted to do that. And so he called a life member. And this is Prabhupada's handwriting he wanted to do a program at the University of Nairobi, and he wanted a poster made. So he gave the outline of the poster that would be set up in all the places of the university. And this is how it would be done. And Prabhupada wrote what should be on the poster. Manifesto presented at I gotta get my glasses. At the University of Nairobi on October 6, 1971. Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Swami, he writes. Founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he gave the hall, Haifa Hall, and he wanted them to print press reports. And this poster was hung all over Nairobi University, and the place was packed. The hall was packed, and they were all dancing because Africans like to dance. They like to do their war dance, you know. And so they love dancing and they love eating. So we gave them prashadam, everything. So that started the African preaching. Prabhupada started, not Brahmananda. He was preaching only to the Indian community. And so they started that. And they got a van and they called it Safari, Hare Krishna Safari. And they had Africans who joined, and then we'd go village to village. And here they're preaching. I forget the name of the tribe. They're very tall. They jump.
Yeah.
Forget the name. But here, Bhagavat is there. This is Bhagavat, Brahmananda, and Chaitanya. And they're distributing back to Godheads in Swahili. They printed in Swahili. So Africa was going on very nicely. And later on, it was Tribhuvannath who increased it. But whenever they go to these little villages, oh, they swarmed over them. They wanted to know about Krishna consciousness. Oh, I can't even read this. How do I make it bigger? Okay. Oh, good. So Prabhupada once said to Brahmananda, if you don't preach to the Africans, then I will. Because it was dangerous to preach to them. I mean, it happened in the Kenya temple. They saw the deity, brass deity, and they thought it was gold. And they wanted to steal it. A bunch of Africans came in to steal it. And one devotee, Pujari, stood in front of them to stop it, and they chopped off his arm. They had machetes. That's their weapon they used in Africa. They don't use guns, they use machetes. And they just cut your head off or cut your arm off, and they cut the Pujari's arm off. So it was a dangerous place in those days. Now they're educated, it's different. There they weren't so educated. And they were, you know, they were free, and they thought the white man, you know, this and that. After preaching in Karachi, Srila Prabhupada says to Brahmananda in 1971, preach to the Africans. But Brahmananda centers his preaching to the Indian community in Kenya. Prabhupada said the Indians have no future in Africa unless the black Africans become devotees. In Uganda, the entire Indian community was expelled. So Srila Prabhupada himself begins the Sankirtan program for black Africans in Nairobi. So I showed you that. Then Brahmananda comments, in Kenya, the Indians donated everything. I actually didn't have to spend any money. Food, flowers, car, gasoline. They did all the commercial activity. I literally just would go to any store whatsoever I wanted and I would take. When Prabhupada came, he asked me, how am I keeping accounts? I said, no, Prabhupada. Why are you not keeping accounts? I said, because I'm not spending anything. He said, oh, that's perfect accounting. When I first came to Africa, I was afraid to preach to the Africans. I had been arrested in Turkey previously for having Harinam on the street. I had a bad experience in these countries and other cultures. So when Prabhupada came, he saw I was preaching only to the Indians. He didn't like it at all. And he said, if you don't preach the Africans, then I will do it. And then he arranged with some Indian leaders to get a hall in the African area at the University of Nairobi. And he told the devotees to just throw open the doors and have kirtan. And they did that. And immediately the hall filled up with hundreds and hundreds of people. Prabhupada was insistent on preaching to the Africans. He didn't want any discrimination. Preaching should be done to the indigenous people, not just the Indians. Indians, Europeans, and Africans dancing together. That was his final instruction to me. So Brahmananda had such a career in Krishna consciousness. I mean, these are some of the. That's Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj playing the mridanga. So many were joining even back then in the 70s. There's Brahmananda. Then Brahmananda went to Nigeria to preach all by himself. And he was invited to a law college where they're studying law. They took a photo with Brahmananda, and he's right there in the middle of all these Nigerians, students. The members of the School of Universal Law in Aba, Nigeria, posed with Brahmananda Swami after his keynote address at their annual convocation. And here's Prabhupada initiating some of the African Nigerians, giving them their beads. So Brahmananda had a very interesting career in spreading Krishna consciousness all over. Then Brahmananda had a class right here on the Bhagavad-Gita. And he proves that Bhagavad-Gita predicts the coming of Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta. It's written in the Bhagavad-Gita. Okay. This is the verse. In Vrindavan, in the Bhagavad-Gita class, Brahmananda Prabhu says 5,000 years ago, Bhagavad-Gita predicts the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada. The verse is chapter 6, verse 42. Get the book. Somebody could read. Don't have one of the students. Chapter 6, verse 42. Yeah. Translation.
Translation to verse 6.42. Or if, unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom, certainly such a birth is rare in this world. Purport. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, those with great wisdom, is praised herein because the child born in such a family receives a spiritual impetus from the very beginning of his life. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. Such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India, there are many such Acharya families, but they have now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. By the grace of the Lord, there are still families that foster transcendentalists generation after generation. It is certainly very fortunate to take birth in such families. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on we met by the order of the Transcendental System.
Temple.
So the verse here, this verse, this verse of Bhagavad Gita is a secret to understanding the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and also Srila Prabhupada. And it's if Krishna 5,000 years ago predicted the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. How Prabhupada connects Bhagavad Gita with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant.
But no one ever spoke that before. So when Brahmananda disappeared, Oh, when Prabhupada went back to India to get Ayurvedic treatment for his stroke, he left for 5 months. That was a big thing for us because Prabhupada was doing everything in 66, 67. He was doing the class, the kirtan leading. No one would do the kirtan leading, and no one was doing class except for Prabhupada. And he's leaving us for 5 months. And we only had association with him for a few months. And here he's leaving us. Who's going to give class? Who's going to lead kirtan? All these things came up. Who's going to do the cooking? We had to join with ourselves and become responsible for Prabhupada's movement because Prabhupada was doing everything. Now he's leaving. So it's all falling on our shoulders to keep it going. So this was a big thing for us. It made our Krishna consciousness more mature in spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement. Before, we were depending everything on Prabhupada, and now he was depending on us. We didn't know if he was going to come back because he was having problems in his brain, pounding sounds like a gong, he said. A gong was ringing. So he went back for Ayurvedic treatment. Prabhupada told me in the hospital they wanted to operate on his brain to find out why the young people are joining him. That's when I took him out of the hospital. I called Brahmananda. I said, bring the car. We're leaving. Yeah. And they all yelled at us, the nurses and doctors, you're going to kill the old man. Leave him here. And Prabhupada said, no, you take me out. We listened to Prabhupada, not the doctors. That was a big thing because everybody listens to the doctors. They know everything. I'm not a doctor, but you listen to the spiritual master and follow his order. So we took him out of the hospital while they're yelling at us. You're going to kill the old man. But we did it anyway because Prabhupada wanted it. Because he said that he wanted to operate on his brain. So he went on the plane and they had a stopover with Kirtananda back to Vrindavan. He went on the plane, he was going to land in Delhi in 1967, in August of 67. No, it was July 24. It's coming up. July 24, he left, 1967. And the first thing Prabhupada did, landing in London, is he wrote a letter to Brahmananda. I have the original letter, but you can't read it. So I'll read it. Historical, very sad event. July 24th, 1966, Srila Prabhupada returned to India for Ayurvedic treatment for heart stroke. The devotees were sad and wondering whether Swamiji would return to USA. From a stopover in London, Srila Prabhupada writes a handwritten letter to Brahmananda Prabhu. My dear Brahmananda, accept my blessings. I'm always thinking of your separation feelings. Please do your duty nicely, and Krishna will help you in all respects. We are delayed here for 16 hours. What happened? They had to change the engine on the airplane. This is the 1960s, where they were changing engines all the time because they didn't work, especially Air India. starting this morning at 9 for Delhi. The attention of Mr. B.K. Nehru, the ambassador of India, was drawn to me the other day. I have told him about my permanent visa, and he has promised to help me when I come back. Please make an appointment with him, informing him I wish to present him our set of Bhagavatam and our other literatures. Then go to him and personally present the books at Washington, D.C. It may be that I shall be coming back very soon as I feel some strength. Up to now, there was no disturbance about my health, and I hope to reach Delhi this night. I shall write you again after reaching Vrindavan. Convey my ardent affection and blessings for all the boys and girls. I'm very much hopeful of my movement. Please keep steady. Follow all my instructions and scrupulously. Chant Hare Krishna, and Krishna will give you all strength. Hope you are all doing well. I'm your ever well wisher, A.C. Bhakti-yoga. So that was very encouraging for us. This is the original letter, handwritten on the hotel stationery. Excelsior Hotel. Prabhupada stayed there at the London airport. Then when Prabhupada went back for 5 months, who's going to go to Tompkins Square Park and chant and lead the chanting? It was Brahmananda. We brought the sign and the first Lord Chaitanya painting of Sankirtan, and Brahmananda would lead the chanting using Prabhupada's little bongo drum in 1967 in the summer after Prabhupada left. So he kept everything going. No, he was a junior, and the wrestlers on his team were all seniors at the school, and he was the captain. He was an athlete. He knows all the holds, and he got a scholarship to Annapolis Military Academy, the most pristine school in America, at Annapolis, Maryland. It's the Annapolis Military, Navy. And he got a scholarship based on his wrestling abilities. He didn't have to pay money. It was a scholarship. But then Krishna changed it because he got an injury. He broke a blood vessel in his neck, and he had to stop wrestling.
But you were saying that there was some disturbance in the lecture. Brahmananda knew that whole.
Yeah, he knew the pressure points. Yeah, that was in Philadelphia. This Prabhupada was lecturing, and this guru, Indian guru, came in with all these girls, young girls. They're all laughing and this and that, sitting down, and they were talking to him, to their guru, while Prabhupada was speaking. And all Prabhupada had to do was go like this. And Brahmananda got up, and he knows the pressure points on the body where it hurts. And he pressed on his ear and pressed in a certain place. Ah, it's time for you to leave, sir. So the man left with all his girls. So they had a special relationship, you know. There was another time where Prabhupada stopped Brahmananda. in 26 Avenue, Prabhupada was lecturing, and the door came open. A man comes running in, and he's holding in his hand a toilet paper, and he's handing it. He wants to give it to Prabhupada, but he came running in, and Brahmananda immediately got up to stop him, and Prabhupada went like this to Brahmananda. And Prabhupada accepted the gift as toilet paper. He was a drunk from the Bowery. We used to get a lot of drunks, you know, there was thousands of them. But Prabhupada accepted it as an offering. Oh, yeah. Okay.
We want to show the film from going to the last one. Yeah, that's the beginning. We show him in the full of pride.
Oh, let me just play this.
Yeah.
How Gorgo Ben got initiated. Brahmananda tells the story on a morning walk.
Prabhupada would walk on the Chakikara Road, all agricultural land. One morning, this one sadhu, he was wearing saffron. He greeted Prabhupada. And then the next morning, again, he was there. He would do this every day, and then he started following us. Then each day he would
No, it's on
come
100%.
closer and closer to Prabhupada so that he could hear. And then one day he said something to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada replied to him. And then each day he'd come and they would talk more and more. Then at the end of the walk, when Prabhupada would go in the temple, he would go on his way. But then one morning, then he came in, did the morning program, and then one morning Prabhupada would go into his house before coming to the temple, and then he came in. Prabhupada invited, and then Prabhupada told me, "All right, he's joining. Prepared him, give him a room, whatever facilities." And he was Gaur Govinda. That's how he joined Gaur Govinda Swami. And Prabhupada initiated him and gave him sannyas, everything. But he was living in Vrindavan as a sadhu, as a renunciate. And just by seeing Prabhupada on the morning walk, each day, more and more he became drawn in, and then he surrendered. So Prabhupada was making devotees just by going on the morning walk.
distribute the Mahaprasad government?
Okay, just trying to find that video.
And put a kirtan probably singing.
Oh, here it is.
Manasa, and it is our duty, chanting, there cannot be any change. Because in whatever condition I may be, I can go on chanting this Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises, never mind, you are in distress or happiness, but go on chanting this Maha. Maya jale bhaktha hoye acho miche kajule. You are entrapped by the network of illusory energy. Maya jale bhaktha hoye. Just like the fisherman catches from the sea all kinds of fishes within the network. Similarly, we are also within the net of illusory energy. And because we have no freedom, therefore all our activities are useless. Action in freedom has got some meaning. But when we are not free within the clutches of Maya, within the network of Maya, then our so-called freedom has no value. Therefore, whatever we are doing, it is simply defeat. Without knowing our constitutional condition, if you are forced to do something like the pressure of the illusory energy, it is simply useless waste of time. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, now we have got full consciousness in human form of life. So, just chant Hare Krishna, Radha Madhava, all these names. There is no loss, but great problem. Jivana Haila says, now, gradually, everyone is on the verge of death. Nobody can say that I shall remain, I shall stay for more 100 years. No, any moment we can die. Therefore, we advise it. One of Peter says, our life is at hand at any moment, and we could not serve Rishikesh, Krishna. Bhagavati Gunadopades. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises, Akbara Nam Rosema. Please be entrapped. Ram Rosema, in the mellow of chanting the transcendental name. Dive yourself within this ocean. That is my
When you get the John, you have to take it right away.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.